to myself again, but it's the only way.
Hello and welcome to NUFC Matters. Today we've had a bit of a role reversal. As you can see, I'm hosting the show. Usually it's Steve hosting the show, and I'm happy to say that today we're eventually doing Steve's dream team. Looking forward to seeing who he's selected. So obviously he'll be choosing a manager, a starting 11 and a bench of players. Should be an interesting watch. So Steve, we'll start off with your first player and we'll start with the goalkeeper.
Wow, this has took some doing, and it's easier when I'm the one presenting the show and asking other people, because I can just sit back and watch the pressure they're under. But believe you me, this has been every bit as difficult as it has for everybody else. But I've enjoyed it. It's been great putting the team down and trying to work it all out. But the goalkeeper, and it's a difficult one for me, because I could go with goalkeepers who've been the best as far as service is concerned, length of games played, particular games that they played which were outstanding. But I think everybody knows my connection with this particular person, and wouldn't be surprised to see why I've picked him. My goalkeeper is Pavel Srnicek, and Pavel played a great part in that entertainers team. He came in as a foreign player who, essentially was wearing tracksuit bottoms. He was coming off his line. He was a continental keeper, a typical continental keeper, and he was laughed at, I've got to be honest, by a lot of Newcastle fans. People would moan and groan when he came off his line, because ultimately it would end in a goal. And I think really because of that rise from, being the clown of the team to being the top class keeper that he became, I think it probably makes it even more, fitting that I have him as my goalkeeper. But he was in goal for that wonderful entertainers period. And we said it many, many times on this show, but Newcastle didn't win anything then. It feels like we did. We should have done, but we didn't. And I think the outstanding qualities that Pav had were communication. You could hear him as a supporter. Fitness. I don't think there was anybody when he was playing for Newcastle or afterwards was as fit as Pav, especially for a goalkeeper. Goalkeepers can be a little bit, maybe he's a little bit less fit. They don't have to run around on the pitch all the time. They just got to be ready and willing to put themselves into positions to stop the ball going into the back of the net, and hoing themselves around on the ground, put themselves at risk. But Pavel was really fit, and I just think as well he just had something about him, and I guess that the goalkeeping tops. I mean, that's my favourite one there. Again, they were garish at times, but they were just fittingly his. We've never seen a goalkeeper before or since who would wear such outlandish styles. But yeah, I mean, the relationship that I built up with him after he'd retired, and the talkings we did when he came back to Newcastle, and subsequently the death of Pavel after we had built up a good relationship off the pitch, and I'd become his agent. Makes it really impossible for me to pick anybody else. And he was a great guy. I'm honoured to say that he was a friend, and there was no other person who I really could have picked as goalkeeper, Holly.
I think many people would go with Pavel Srnicek. I think he's remembered very, very well with Newcastle fans. Like you said, the shirts are pretty much just as iconic as he is. Pavel is a Geordie, as the saying goes, and I think he'll be remembered forever. So it's a really, really good first pick. Have you gone for a 4-4-2?
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm stuck in my ways.
Yeah.
I went 4-4-2 as a Sunday League manager, and I'm never going to change. And it made it awkward, really. I've got to be honest. To get one or two in, there's a few players I could have played and would have had to been out of position, but it started to fall into place. But yeah, I went for a 4-4-2.
Yeah, classic formation. So we'll start with your first centre back then.
Okay, my first centre-back. And again, this probably shows my age. I'm going to be 50 next year. And we've had some really good centre halves over the years. We've had some awful centre halves over the years, and we've had some bang average centre halves over the years. And I've always felt that a centre half should be somebody who can not only play the game and read the game, but can also captain the team. So it made it quite easy for me in the sense of who was going to be me first centre half, because this person was a leader of men. He was my first captain at Newcastle United, somebody who, I witnessed take the team to promotion and subsequently cement a position in the old First Division. Actually took us top of the league after 3 games under Jack Charlton as skipper, but also had a rather unique style, as well as being a leader of the team. He had the infamous shuffle, and that, of course, is Glenn Roeder. A lovely guy, a top guy, on and off the pitch, but a man who didn't suffer fools gladly, and a man who ultimately, did it all at Newcastle, because he didn't just play for Newcastle, but he also came back and came back in as a caretaker, and ultimately then a full-time Newcastle United manager. So he joins the unique Hall of Fame of being somebody who has not only played for the club, captained the club, but also managed the club. And that puts him in a unique little group of people. And for a Londoner, and we've got to bear in mind that a lot of the time, when there's criticism of Newcastle as a club or Newcastle as a place, or the Newcastle fans, to say that we're against Cockneys, we don't like to see Cockneys, and Cockneys will never settle here. It's utter rubbish, because Glenn Roeder is another prime example of somebody who travelled north and loved it up here, and we loved him. But yeah, I mean, that picture there is just synonymous with what he brought to Newcastle United as a player and as a captain. He was fantastic, and the Roeder shuffle, was a unique move, almost like the Beardsley jinx. You had the Roeder shuffle, and he was just cool, calm, and collected when he took the ball out. He'd have an upright style, and it was just everything you were taught at football, everything you were taught at school. As a youngster, look up, look at who you're passing the ball to, and then he had it all. He had grace, he had style, he could get stuck in, and he pitched in with the odd goal every now and then. So yeah, Glenn Roeder is not only my first centre half, but he is also the captain of my dream team as well.
Very, very solid captain. I think it's off to a good start, but yeah, definitely good pick there. So we'll continue with your second centre back.
Second centre back, I could have picked any one of 3 who came to my mind at first. I mean, I think what becomes apparent with my team is that it's pretty much stuck in particular eras, and that's because really the players that have come after that haven't really done enough to impress me, and haven't really had the same kind of elevated success in the leagues, if you like. And again, it's about pairings as well, because although I could say such and such and such and such are good players, they should be in my team, you then start thinking about how these people would actually play together, and that becomes an issue as well. So you have to pick somebody, I think, who is going to complement Glenn's style, but is also going to to carry the natural attributes who would be able to step in if Glenn was missing, for example. So I started thinking more with the manager's head on. My next centre half was somebody essentially who gave well over a decade's service to the cause, and who made the jump from Wearside to Tyneside, albeit at young level, and blossomed here. He was part of the young breed of players that came through in the time of our dealers, and somebody who naturally developed into a centre half after first being played up front at Newcastle. The height and his capabilities were there for all to see when he was originally a centre forward. But but he was eventually put back into defensive duties, and he flourished. And I think he flourished more under Kevin Keegan than many others. And my second centre half is Steve Howie. I think with Steve, you got commitment. Again, somebody who read the game well, still reads the game well when he plays in charity games. Very competitive, doesn't like to lose, and also willing to play through the pain barrier. Somebody who ultimately, would give his all for the black and white. And it's all the more commendable when, you think that, he came from a Sunderland background. I mean, his brother, of course, played for Sunderland, and Steve is one of the prime examples of somebody who could come from that area and do us proud. And again, through Newcastle Legends, he's become a good friend of mine. He's done a lot for me over the years, and we've worked together on numerous occasions. And I think when you get to know him as well, he's quite a humorous character, and I think in the dressing room especially, whereas Glenn Roeder would be quite quiet and, be telling you what he wanted to do on the pitch. I think away from football, I think Steve Howie's a very sociable kind of guy. And I think he would bring in the laughs and the jokes and the fines and that kind of thing in the dressing room. And I think he will be a key member in that dressing room for keeping the camaraderie going. And you need that, because in every team, you need to have that camaraderie. You need somebody to be organising the nights out. You need somebody to be organising the laughs and the jokes. You need somebody to organise the entertainment on the bus. Everyone plays a part within a team, and I just think Steve would bring that. He also brings the local knowledge, the local know-how, and I just think that he's a valuable asset. But he was a great player as well. And I mean, again, part of that infamous entertainers team who should have won the league, but didn't. Got us to cup final as well, cup finals in the late 90s. And somebody, as I say, gave us the best years of his career. And again, that for me is worthy of him and being in that team. And I think they would both complement each other in style, him and Glenn. They would both know their jobs. And with Pavel behind them, barking orders and keeping them right, because as a goalkeeper, you get the best view of everything in front of you. I think that's a fairly solid partnership.
Yeah, I agree. And I've had the pleasure of meeting Steve Howie before. He's a great guy, like you said. And I think I've never had the pleasure of watching him in real life, watch a lot of old games back. But I think the word to describe Steve Howie is he's just a grafter, and he always put 100% in. So, yeah, I think those two together would work very, very well. Moving on now to your left back. Who have you went as left back, Steve?
The full-backs I found the most difficult. And the reason being that we haven't been blessed with great full-backs, since 1983-84, which of course was my first season. And again, it's about, trying to get the best players in, but also players who are going to complement the two centre halves and who are going to work hard. So again, as well, when you go for a 4-4-2, you need certain types of players in there. So my left back goes to somebody who was a versatile player, somebody who could have done a job in midfield, but could also do a job, at fullback, could have even filled in really at centre half for us. And somebody who was an international, somebody who did very well at international level, and somebody who often says on the after dinner circuit there, if it hadn't been for him, then Kevin Keegan would never have come to Newcastle. As soon as he heard this player was going to Newcastle, Kevin had no doubts that St James's Park was the place for him. But my left back is John Anderson, and of course John is somebody who we all know now does BBC Radio Newcastle. He used to work a lot of years with Mick Lowes, of course, who does NUFC Matters for us. But Ando was, he was 150%. And he would put, he would know when to put the man into row Z. He would know when to put the ball into row Z. But he again, read the game, and he'd give you 150%. I would say a very, somebody who's probably not quite as good as Ando, it is Paul Dummett. Paul Dummett's very similar just a good, solid, rugged defender who gets stuck in and who can, physically match you, could get stuck in. He wasn't blessed with a lot of pace, Ando, and he played in those days when, of course, there was headbutts flying around, there was flying elbows, there was tackles knee high, and maybe people might think he wouldn't be able to adapt his game, but he was an intelligent footballer as well, Ando. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure with any rule changes, Ando would be able to adapt and fit in no problem. But yeah, again, international experience, many caps for Ireland. And again, somebody who, on a social aspect would have a night out, and would keep the morale up. But again, not afraid to speak his mind. And of course, played alongside Glenn, as well. So I think, the combination of Glenn and Ando I've seen personally, I know how well that worked. And, if there was injuries or whatever, I think Ando could be switched from full back into centre half, or he could do you a job as a defensive midfielder if need be. So for me, Ando, was one of my favourite players. And I told you my team would be a little bit like that, that, it's players who give 100% sometimes are worth their weight in gold. It's why modern day, not that he has made me dream team. Somebody like Matt Ritchie always stands out to me because of his work rate, his graft, and I just think those kind of players are hard to find. They're so hard to find, and Ando would run through a brick wall for you. He'd be one of the first names on your team sheet. And again, somebody who could fit in as a captain if need be, if Rhoda was missing. So yeah, I've got no issues with having Ando in there, and I'm just again delighted to say that I saw him play in his prime.
I think that's all we want as fans, players that do put their all in, give 100% all the time. I think that's all you can ask of a player. Now we almost have your complete defence. On to your fourth and final defender. Who have you got?
This guy really had an interesting time at Newcastle. Again, it's another member of the Entertainers team. Somebody who, didn't duck criticism. I think it's probably the way to put it, because he didn't always have, an easy ride at Newcastle United. He was a divisive player amongst the supporters at times, but when the going was good, it's easy to coast along. When the going's against you, to still go on and put in 100% when you're pulling the black and white shirt on is something which is not easy, but he did. Warren Barton makes up my back four. And again, right back, you had two good full-backs in that Entertainers team. You had Warren Barton and you had John Beresford. And for me, Warren just, he was just a class act. And I mean, he came from Wimbledon. So, we'd had a history in the years previous to that of buying players from Wimbledon. I mean, when Wimbledon won the FA Cup, we basically dismantled their FA Cup winning team, but we took some of the players who, just didn't fit in at Newcastle. We signed Dave Besant, who was the goalkeeper who got lobbed virtually every game in the relegation season. We signed Andy Thorne, the centre half, who, God bless him, was probably the best player we signed from there, but he just wasn't up to scratch. We signed Glenn Hodges again. I think he lasted 80 odd days or something. So we the money we spent, we wasted, and we didn't get the best. So I think there was a little bit of and ahhing when we signed Warren, and I mean it was a big transfer fee at the time as well. But when he came in, he hit the ground running, and again he just added to the players around us. It was the next step from being promoted, and Keegan taking us from the old second division into the Premier League, and then going on. He became part of that journey, and we'd had Mark Ottega, who had a couple of seasons at Newcastle, who'd done well, but I think that Warren came in, he established and made that role his own. He captained the team at certain times, and again, it's another Londoner, somebody who came from down south, who essentially, just fell in love with Newcastle, fell in love with the city, fell in love with the people, and the respect was mutual. But yeah, I mean, it's a fairly solid back four. It's a defensively minded back four, but I think when you play four at the back, you need that. Your main focus as a back four is to defend, and to get the ball, under control, or get it out and get it up to the midfield, or get it up to the forwards to let them do what they're going to do. And I had no qualms in making Warren part of me back four. He gave me, many happy hours as a Newcastle fan. And I think the game and the goal that I always remember is he didn't have a great game at all. It was the second 4-3 against Liverpool at Anfield, but he scored. And just Google the celebration of Warren when he scores that day. It tells you how much it means to him, notching the goal for Newcastle. I think he got man of the match that day as well. And I remember watching it back. I think we didn't have a particularly good game, but you could see why he got man of the match. And I think when you listen to him now, you see how much Newcastle means to him. He obviously coaches now in America. He's been on NUFC Matters a few times, but he's somebody who essentially, gets what the club means. He loves the club and the club's fans. Even though some of them won't have seen him play like yourself, you can see what the club means to him. And it'd be great to see him back at Newcastle in some capacity at some point, because he bleeds black and white.
Yeah, well, you've mentioned a couple of times that typically Geordies and Londoners don't always get along, but I think Warren Barton, as well as Rob Lee, I think it's fair to say, are two players which were definitely welcomed with open arms and taken on as adopted Geordies, if you like. So I think he's a very, very special player. Moving on now to the midfield, we'll start in the central midfield. Who's your first central midfielder?
Yeah, again, it's not until you start jotting this down that you go, wow, can I leave him out? How would he work? But again, I've gone down that mindset of bringing in players who I think would complement each other, but also players who are in my favourite players of all time. Come as no surprise to see that Warren Barton is going to get some company, and you've already mentioned him, Rob Lee. And Rob is an outstanding player. In his day, pound for pound, the best signing Newcastle ever made, not just under Kevin Keegan, but just in our history. To bring somebody in from Charlton, as we did, and him to hit the ground running as he did amongst the esteemed players that he was playing with, told you about this kid's quality. I actually had quite a few programs from games at Charlton over the years. I used to collect programs, and he was a legend down there. He was an absolute star, and I think he scored something in the region of 60 odd goals at Charlton in just short of 300 appearances. And Newcastle really, really did well to bring him in. And I mean, the story's been heard many times. Kevin Keegan had a meeting with him. Middlesbrough were in for him, and Keegan actually, sold him the dream of Newcastle United, but also told him that Newcastle was closer to London than Middlesbrough was. And Rob decided that Newcastle was the place for him. And I know for a fact that he knows that was the best decision he ever made, because the next decade of his career saw him play over 300 games at Newcastle and get almost 50 goals in his time there. I think it was something like 44, 45 goals he scored. But what an absolute legend. He was playing for his footballing hero, which was Kevin Keegan. And he got a chance to play alongside some of the biggest names and some of the best names of that period, I think it was, I did a talk in a few months back with Gavin Peacock, and I think it was Gavin Peacock, of course, who had connections with Charlton, with his dad, etc. himself, who alerted Kevin to the availability and the ability of Rob Lee. And when Kevin went and looked at him, he said he's the guy for us. Ultimately, the promotion to the Premier League, and then the first jaunt into Europe saw Rob Lee score a fantastic hat trick in Antwerp, a perfect hat trick, right foot, left foot, and a header. And the charge for the league again. He was part of the infamous team that almost won the Premier League, and he just got better and better and better. And I think the only time that he would, and he would admit this, when the only time he didn't enjoy his time at Newcastle was when Dalglish left and Ruud Gullit came in, and he basically banned him from training with the first team. He took the shirt off him, and he belittled him really. And he got a new lease of life, of course, under Sir Bobby Robson. And I think just the goal I remember the most, like most people, was the goal at Wembley. Alan Shearer crossing the ball in, and Rob Lee scoring the goal to get us back in that game against Chelsea in the semi-final of the FA Cup. But sadly, under Sir Bobby Robson, it wasn't meant to be. I also remember the game that he played when we played Brentford, I think it was, and Rob Lee scored from inside own half. And if the slightly older members of the NUFC Matters fan base remember David Beckham scoring for Man United over the halfway line, well, it was further away than that. But the goal was chalked offside, and it was former Newcastle number 9 Joe Allen who was offside. On that particular day, he was coming back from an offside, and the goal got chalked off. But probably the greatest goal that wasn't a goal that was scored by Rob Lee. But what he brought to the team was effort, was commitment, was goals, and you just couldn't not have him in your Newcastle team if you'd watched him. So yeah, he's my first centre half.
Well, if I was supporting Newcastle in the 90s, he certainly would have been the first name on my team sheet as well. Who have you gone alongside Rob Lee in the central midfield?
Now, obviously, I've been quite lucky in the sense that I've seen a lot of legends in black and white shirts. I've seen a lot of talented players, and not all of these players have probably had their best days at Newcastle that I've selected. Some of them maybe have prospered elsewhere or done better elsewhere. Maybe he's won a trophy elsewhere. We haven't won a trophy since '69, of course. So for me, I really wanted to just go with those players who I'd actually seen in the flesh, and who might not have done as well at Newcastle, but certainly went on to have great careers. And this guy, although he had a topsy-turvy career in 1990, he was the best player in the world. And Gaza, for me, plays alongside Rob Lee in the centre of midfield. And Gaza, as a young Gaza that I saw, influenced me quite heavily because I had quite long hair when I was a kid, believe it or not. And I was the first person I wanted to go and look like. I wanted to be like Gaza. I wanted to look like Gaza. And I copied his hairstyles quite a bit as a youngster. He was a hero. He was somebody who you could see was going to be special. And we went through that period of selling players, and we'd sold Chris Waddle, who ended up, getting the lickings of a dog whenever he came back to St James's Park. We called him a Judas. He wanted to leave. Then Peter Beardsley left. Now, when Beardsley left for us, that was awful because Beardsley was an absolute legend. He kept that team up himself on occasions. But Gaza was coming through, so the sourness of losing Beardsley was almost tempered by the fact that we had Gaza coming through. And for me, it was just a pleasure to watch him. And there's my favourite goal of all time was scored by Gaza in a Newcastle shirt. A lot of people might point to a Ginola goal or a Shearer goal or a Peter Beardsley goal as their favourite. But my favourite goal ever at St James's Park was scored by Gaza. And it was Crystal Palace at home in the FA Cup. And he just jinxed past a couple of players and then hit it first time. And the ball flew towards the Gallagher end, which, of course, didn't have a stand then. It was terracing. And the ball just stuck in the stanchion. It stuck and then rattled and then dropped down. But it was a goal out of nothing. It was sheer genius. And it was just Gaza all over. I remember a game against Blackpool as well, where he just, he oozed class that night. And I think it was Brian Tinian put a couple of balls through for Gaza on that night. And one of the goals he scored was just sublime. There was a game against Swindon Town as well when he rattled a brace in that day. I think it was again at the Gallagher end, scored another great game. And I think when you look back at the footage of those games, you've got to appreciate how bad the pitch was. If it was bad weather, these pitches really cut up and they really suffered. And, there wasn't much grass on them on occasions. And Gaza was almost gliding through mud at times. And I remember when he really started to make an impression on everybody. I remember an interview on North East Tonight by the man who discovered him, and it was Jackie Milburn, obviously, one of Newcastle's greatest ever strikers, the man who held the record before Shearer. And if Jackie Milburn says somebody's a good player, then you know he's a good player. And it's been, it was great to see him, in a black and white shirt. I remember him playing in Liverpool. I mean, this is like I remember when, but I remember playing Liverpool, and we won the game. I think it was George Riley got the winner. I think we won 1-0, and I think Gaza might have played in that game. But he was just a unique talent, special talent, and I think he would complement Rob Lee as well. I think that the experience of Rob Lee and the tenacious, running and battling that Rob Lee brings to the team will be complemented by Gaza. And Gaza never give it up. He was carrying a bit of excess weight, obviously, in his early days. But I just think Gaza would be a perfect foil in the midfield with Rob Lee. So that is my centre midfield pairing.
Gaza was an absolute wizard. I think he had an absolute magic about his game. I don't think there's anyone that's ever came close to Gaza, to be honest, in terms of his ability and just what he could do even off the ball. It was fantastic to watch. So we'll move to the right-sided midfield. Who have you got on the right?
Again, the midfield situation was really difficult because there were so many players who I could have played. And again, I'm not... When I managed on a Sunday... Yeah, and football's football. When you pick teams, you pick teams. You're not always thinking about right foot and left foot and who's right-footed and who's left-footed. Sometimes you can play on the right. You can play a player on the right who can cut in and shoot with his left. So, I have been tossing and turning, I think, before I came on about these particular players. I had 4. I was left with 4 wingers I could have played. And I went with the players that probably gave us the most enjoyment and joy watching, and the ones who got us out of my seat, and the ones who were essentially capable of doing the unexpected. And again, you'll see why when I name me 2 wingers, why I've gone for these 2. So on the right, I've gone for Chris Waddle. Waddle was actually a lazy player to watch to fans. But he wasn't lazy, if that makes sense. He was somebody who lurched, and it was the way that he ran and the way that he dribbled. I mean, you can see he's got quite thick legs, Holly. He was quite a lumbersome kind of guy, but it was the style that he had and the way that he ran and just the way that he would drop his shoulder and then he'd be off, and you can watch the footage of him, especially in his later career when he was playing for the likes of Marseille. He was superb playing for England. Just a big lad who had a great turn and a great, just a great football brain. But yeah, Waddler was part of that first team that I supported, the 83-84 promotion team. And that season, with Waddle, Beardsley, and Keegan, it was just perfect. You'd struggle to find a better front 3 that have played for Newcastle in the history. Yes, there's been teams with great centre forwards. Jackie Milburn, I've mentioned. Alan Shearer, I've mentioned. You had the pairing of Shearer and Ferdinand. Even during the darker years, we had Mickey Quinn and Mark McGee. In my time, Quinn was a great goal poacher. But yeah, with the wingers, I just wanted to bring something different. And I think with Chris Waddle, he would give you something different, and he could score goals as well. And I think there's not enough wingers in teams who can score goals. And he had such a wonderful season in 83-84. And then he went on in 85 before he left the club. As I say, Newcastle, and after the first 3 games, were top of the league. And, Waddle and Beardsley were taking over the mantle from Keegan and Terry Mack, who subsequently retired. And they were there creating the goals for George Riley, for Tony Cunningham, and, obviously, he wanted to go off though. Then he wanted to find his fame and fortune, and Tottenham was the chosen choice to go and play down in London. But we had some good years out of Chris, and when you think about it, he came from Gateshead, same as me. He was also somebody who was working in a factory. He's working in a sausage making factory before he came to football, and he came from the non-league, which again I think makes it even more special. Came from Tow Law, and I just think Chris was just a player who I would describe as it was like poetry in motion watching him. Despite the lazy style and being accused of being lazy, I just think he was a great player, and for me, for the fact that he would pitch in with goals as well as creating goals, he was a must-to-have in my team.
To complete your midfield, Steve, who have you went as left winger?
I think a lot of people will be expecting some kind of Gallic flair in my team, but certainly not in my first 11. A player who really did well at Newcastle prior to the entertainers really kickstarting in the Premier League is my next choice, and that's Scott Sellers. Scott was somebody who essentially, came in and won the fans over just with his amazing, his amazing ball skills. His dead ball accuracy was great. I mean, we were lucky in that period. We had him. We had Kevin Sheedy, who was capable of a free kick. A little bit earlier, I had Liam O'Brien, who could bang a few goals in. But Scott Sellers, just had a sweet foot. He could hit the ball on a sixpence and it would get to somebody. And he was just very, very, very talented. Very creative player, but somebody again who you could rely on to get you the odd goal, the odd match winner. Which again is important. I think my midfield. It's got a bit of everything in there. You've got a left foot, you've got left footers, you've got somebody who's capable of dead ball accuracy. You've got a grafter and a goal scorer, and you've got an entertainer. You've got somebody who can be creative and can bring a little bit of everything to the game. But I mean, a consummate professional, somebody who got stuck in as well if need be, but somebody who was there at the beginning of the entertainers. And it took David Ginola's appearance and signing really to drive Scott Sellers away. And I've heard the story many a time on the after dinner circuit when David Ginola arrives. He walks down onto the training pitch, and what the players used to do was they used to test the new signing. So Beresford got the job of pinging him a really awkward ball at full pelt, and Ginola saw it coming and just turned and took it down on his instep and then passed it on. And as he did that, Scott Sellers ran past John Beresford and just said, "That's me." He knew he was on his way. And it took somebody special like Ginola to dislodge him. But he was a great servant to the club. He was somebody who, as I say, gave us a lot of happy memories. A derby winner as well, a derby winner, which is always something you can look back on and say, he's got that and he's got that in his tank. He never have to buy a drink in Newcastle again. But yeah, I think with a solid back four and goalkeeper that I've got a really, really creative midfield who can open up defences, can all score goals, but who can also create for me front two.
A great team so far. I've been looking forward to seeing who you've got as the strike partnership. So who is your first striker? Strike
partnerships are really difficult. They've got to work. They've got to be. They've got to complement each other, and they've got to score goals. And ultimately, with the midfield that I've got there, we know that they're going to get chances. And it would be a travesty, I think, for most teams. That anybody picks for Newcastle United if they didn't have Alan Shearer in it. And, Al is the main man, still the Premier League's top goal scorer as we record this programme in 2021, which is a major achievement in itself. Still Newcastle United's all-time greatest goal scorer. The scorer of tap-ins, the scorer of penalties, the scorer of headers, the scorer of sublime and ridiculous goals. Score of free kicks. But England's all-time scorer, Alan Shearer, has to be in Newcastle United's dream team for me, because he was a captain as well. He led by example, both on and off the pitch. You just got excited knowing that Alan was playing. And when we didn't have him available, he was a big, big miss. And for me, there's so many great goals that Alan scored in his time at the club. I'm lucky to say that I was privy to most of them as a supporter, both home and away. I think my favourite goal at home has to be the goal against Everton. The fact that it was Shola Amiobi who got an assist off that is bizarre, but it was just a hell of a strike. The goal against Aston Villa, when he hit it from a ridiculous angle past Schmeichel and he was rooted to the spot, is another one. His celebration against Man United when we won 5-0, and his reaction towards the fans. His last goal, I was there down at the Stadium of Light when he scored his penalty, and then was subsequently hacked down and never to be seen again. The goal that took him past Jackie Milburn's record, I was there for that, which again was fantastic. But I was also there for his debut goal when he played, at home against Wimbledon. His home debut, his home first goal at St James's Park, and it was a free kick, I think, against Wimbledon. And again, just great memories. Obviously, didn't win anything. When we all stood outside that day at St James's Park, I think it was 15,000 of us at the Leazes End when Alan Robson announced him onto stage at the back of the Leazes End, and the £15 million man came out. We all thought, this is it. We're going to win something, and this is the man who's going to bring us a trophy. I think he probably even thought the same, but it wasn't to be. He leaves us with some great memories from semi-finals. The goal he scored against Sheffield United, where he bundled it into the net to get us to Wembley. Subsequently, the next semi-final when we played Spurs, and he scored another sublime goal in the semi-final. And we weren't expected to beat Spurs, but we did. But the two cup finals he got to, it wasn't meant to be. We went up against the treble winners, Man United, and the double winners in Arsenal. And, the closest he came was hitting the post in one of those finals. It's a case of what might have been. Great captain, as I say, great personality. Again, somebody who ran through the pain barrier for us. Probably the most memorable memory of Alan Shearer doesn't involve a goal. I guess it involves a set two down at the Gallagher End with Roy Keane. Roy Keane, of course, who captained Man United and who, was, epitomised everything that we hated about Man United at that particular time. They were our big rivals. But the fact that he just went head-to-head with him and, Roy Keane ended up getting sent off was an absolute belter. To actually just be there and see that happen was great. But so many happy memories of Alan. And, just wish we had somebody like him in the team now to score the goals, for the first team. Will we ever see anybody like him again? I very much doubt it at Newcastle. But, just pleased to say that I did see him. But yeah, he's my first striker.
A natural goal scorer. You can't get any better than Shearer, and I think that's backed up by numbers. I have an idea of who you might put alongside Shearer, but I'll see if I'm right. Who have you put alongside Alan Shearer?
Difficult one again because of the fact that your partnerships are so difficult in football. You've got to get the right people in to play with that particular person, and it comes down to linking as well, I guess, from the midfield to the forward line. I think if you play two out-and-out strikers, it doesn't always work. Although, as I've already mentioned, Mick Quinn, Mark McGee, probably two very similar players. Although there was a degree of creativity from Mark McGee, he could jinx in and jink in and slot the ball through. Whereas Mickey Quinn was very much a poacher. Shearer was, although Shearer had a vast array of talents, he was known as a poacher. That's how he got a lot of his goals. So I felt that I needed that link between the midfield and the forward line, but somebody who could play, in either role. If I had to change the formation, this person could probably play off. This person could also do a job in midfield, really. But this person, of course, you know, could also score goals, and that was vital. But just playing off Shearer, in my dream team to finish off my 11, I've got Peter Beardsley. He's my favourite all-time Newcastle player. He's somebody essentially who not only helped make the careers of many others at St James's Park, but you know, came back not once but twice to his hometown club and did a sterling job on both occasions. And you know, in that early spell that he had at the club in 83, 84, I've already mentioned, you know, how well he played alongside the likes of Kevin Keegan and Chris Waddle, and how he complemented them. You know, he basically single-handedly, along with a guy called Paul Goddard, who didn't quite make my squad, you know, kept Newcastle up. And you know, he was just you know, just some of the goals he scored, some of the work rate he put in, absolutely fantastic. When he came back the second time, I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. And you know, you think that David Kelly was the man who they let go to bring Peter Beardsley in, and Kelly had such a great season in the promotion season. So for Beardsley to come in, it was scratching my heads a little bit, thinking, "Wow, is this a really wise move?" Couldn't have been further from. You know, why I would even disbelieve that he would have done a good job, I don't know. But he came in and he just hit the ground running. It was like he'd never been away. And we had a rebirth of Peter Beardsley at Newcastle, and he was absolutely superb. And that season with Andy Cole, he made most of his goals, and Andy Cole just must have thought it was all his Christmases rolled into one, you know. And he broke Hughie Gallagher's scoring record in one season, really down to the fact that Peter Beardsley was putting the balls in, you know, time and time again. But yeah, look, he's a Geordie. He knows what it's all about to play for his hometown club. He's somebody who essentially is, you know, he, again, another one who bleeds black and white. I like the fact as well with Peter that he, you know, he has an addiction to chocolate and sweets, but he was a clean living kind of guy. You know, he was the yin to Steve Howie's yang, if you like. Steve Howie would be getting you out in the drink, whereas Peter would be, you know, he'd be the sensible one. And I think you always need that kind of combination within the dressing room. You need a little bit of everything, you know, you need a little bit of everything in the ingredients to make the perfect team. But yeah, I think the fact that Peter went on to have such a great career, a distinguished career, you know, going to Liverpool and winning the trophies that he did, especially, you know, with a wonderful team that they had down there when he left Newcastle. I think that the experience as well that Peter brings to that team is superb, you know. But again, it's that link up between him and the midfield in particular, which I think was important in selecting him for my team. So, you know, we know he scores goals. There's goals in that team from the midfield. I've got two people up front who can score goals. And I've got the odd goal being pitched in from centre halves. It's goal heavy, really. You know, so yeah, that completes my 1 to 11.
Goal heavy in contrast to the current team, I think that's fair to say. Beardsley, someone that's very much like Gaza, again, someone that's very talented, really, really gets you off your seat in the game. So I think would be a very entertaining sight to watch. A lot of big personalities in that team, I think it's fair to say. So who have you tasked with the job of managing it?
Managing the team, dead easy. You know, there's only one man who I could have as manager, and that's Kevin Keegan. Because, you know, that guy knew what it was like to play, you know, at the highest level. You know, European Footballer of the Year twice, won, you know, accolades and trophies. You know, not just in England but across the continent, and somebody who, you know, essentially knows how to manage a football team, and he could manage the entertainers, and he can manage big personalities. And I think as well, because, you know, the likes of Waddle and Beardsley in particular, he played with them. You know, he would have that connection with them and that relationship with them. But there's nobody giving me the brand of football that Kevin's given. So Bobby comes a close second. But I couldn't let sentimentality get in the way on that. I think I had to really genuinely look at and say, since 1983-84, who has given you the most pleasure as a football manager at Newcastle United on a consistent basis? And the answer had to be Kevin Keegan. And I think he'd do a great job. I think he'd set them up. And you know, again, he would go with the attacking philosophy. And I think if I was his chairman, he'd be looking at that going, you've served us well with these players. I'm very happy. And I think he'd get us that elusive trophy with that team.
Could only be one man, really, couldn't it? Kevin Keegan pretty much picks himself, I think. An absolute legend of that era, certainly. Now onto the bench. Who have you got on the bench as your first player?
Well, I've gone for 5 subs, which is what most people have done in the dream teams. I could have extended it, but I thought, look, I'll stick with 5 as well. And there's plenty of strength and depth, and I did go into a bit of thought with this as to who I might need if there was an injury or suspension or whatever. So goalkeeper, I've gone for Shea Given. Shea Given was the best goalkeeper in Newcastle's history as far as appearances is concerned, and one of those dependable goalkeepers. Another international, another man who was a great shot stopper, and just somebody who, again, came to Newcastle, fell in love with the area, and still has many connections here. Not afraid to give his back four, as you can see in that photograph, a piece of his mind if things weren't going according to plan or going well. And somebody who, again, from a goalkeeping perspective, could actually captain the team if need be. One of your blue chip players, I guess, one of the blue chip brigade, somebody who could, if need be, step into the breach and help. And I just think, Shea Given, although he didn't make my number one position for reasons I've already explained, is a good able deputy. And if there was anything wrong with Pavel, whether he suffered a poor run in form or whether he got injured, I know that Shea Given could step in and do equally as well in that position. So easy pick for me as a goalkeeper. Shea Given is the substitute goalkeeper.
Defensively wise, who else is on the bench?
Okay, I've gone for one centre half who could come in if need be. And the reason this guy didn't make the starting 11 is because injuries were following him around when he came to Newcastle. Somebody, again, who could be a leader. Probably the best centre half I've seen pull on a Newcastle United shirt in my time as a fan. Nobody better in terms of just the way that he played the game, and that's Jonathan Woodgate. He really was somebody who you had to see him to believe him. And I just remember him signing. I couldn't quite believe that Woodgate had chosen to come to Newcastle, because we were on a bit of a decline at that point after the entertainers period in the 90s, and we were flirting with European positions and European football, and I just thought it might be difficult to sign him, but we got him in, we brought him in, but as I say, we didn't quite see the best of Jonathan Woodgate at Newcastle, and that is why he didn't make the starting 11. But I think he'd be a very able deputy. He'd be able to come on. He'd be able to captain the team again. You can see that I've got that running theme of, people being able to come in and do a particular job, but also, if need be a voice in the dressing room, and it's a bit of competition in there with the players who I've selected. But I don't think these people would clash either. I think they would get on quite well. And I think, again, the competition for places would mean that if somebody did drop out due to bad form or injury, the person come in would be able to fit straight in with the team. So Jonathan Woodgate is my main defensive cover on that bench.
I think the fact that you've got so many potential captains in that side is a really, really good thing. Certainly important, and quite a competitive side as well. In terms of the midfield, who have you put on the bench?
Well, I went for another versatile player. I've gone for a couple of more midfielders, and I've gone for another centre forward in the other 3 substitute positions. So, Mr. Versatility in the early days of Keegan's management was Barry Venison. And Venez, again, was a captain at Newcastle at some point. He was another leader of men, but somebody who could play back 4 or midfield. He was comfortable in either position. Again, somebody who had previously played at Sunderland and had done quite well in the 80s. Played at Liverpool at the top level, and he was another born winner, somebody who could win something, which I think is really important in a team. If you're looking to win things yourself, signing born winners is a good way of doing it, because they don't choke when it comes to crossing the line on winning that trophy. But Venez was again, he was another socialite, somebody who would like a night out, somebody who would be the laughing joke in the dressing room, and somebody who would essentially, know when to work hard, but also know when to play hard too. but you give 100% on the pitch. And I mean, probably another person who springs to mind, although he was quite quiet, not really captain material, was Paul Bracewell at that time. Paul Bracewell was another ex-Sunderland player who came to Newcastle and did a sterling job in that early part of Keegan's time as a manager. But yeah, I think with Barry Venison, I think on and off the pitch, you just get 150% commitment, and just somebody who, again, wouldn't be a bad shout to have on the bench with my team if we needed to replace somebody. And with the exception of goalkeeper, Barry would come on and give it a go, and that's all I would be asking from my team and from my players.
Who's alongside Venison on the bench?
I have gone for a bit of Gaelic flair because, like everybody who has had their dream teams, I do have a favourite Frenchman who played for Newcastle, and I guess it comes as no surprise that it's David Ginola, or David. That guy came to Newcastle, and he was only here a short period of time, but the flair that he gave us, and the fact that he took over from somebody in my first team, which is Scott Sellers, tells you all you need to know, and tells you how good he was. And to get Sellers out of the team, this guy had to be good, but he just oozed flair, he oozed confidence, and yeah, he wasn't a defender. He wasn't somebody who would track back and graft and help you. He was somebody who just wanted to push forward. And I think he would be a great impact substitute for my team if we had to change things around a bit. And I mean, the fact that I could probably bring Waddler off and put David on, or bring Scott Sellers off and bring him on and switch Waddler to the other flank, I just think it would give you so much. It would just give you so much, diversity. It would just give you something a little bit different. And I think, if this team was playing in a hypothetical game and, we were 1-0 down with 20 minutes to go and we're chasing an equaliser, you could bring David on and, the fullback would probably have nightmares, seeing him come on. I'm thinking, dear me, how this team's got too much for us, and we might even turn in, we'll win. But David was great. And I mean, he scored some sublime goals. I think the one that I remember the most isn't the Man United one, although that was a great one in the 5-0 win, but it's the Ferencváros goal, which again, many people will have seen in the European game at St James's Park. Again, if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's on YouTube, and it's just a fascinating goal, brilliant goal, technically brilliant. And he had a good career moving on. He again, another one who was wooed by the London Lights. After Keegan had left, things were dismantled by Dalglish and co. And we didn't quite see the best of him after that, which was disappointing. I would love to have come. And I think the rumor is that he could have gone to Barcelona, but Keegan persuaded him to stay. And then Keegan duly left, leaving a very disappointed David. So, he's a great player in Newcastle's history. Somebody who, would do well in this team. And again, I think any of the players dropping out, him going in, it's a perfect replacement. It's a good shoe-in,
Having someone like Ginola on the bench would certainly terrify a lot of defences, that's for sure. Finally, as your fifth player on the bench, who have you got as a striker?
Well, of course, I mentioned him earlier because the partnership between Alan and this guy, albeit another short pairing, it was just phenomenal, the amount of goals they scored. Almost 60 goals they scored in one season together. This guy could play with Alan, or he could play with Peter, depending on what I decided to do, and that's Les Ferdinand. The two best strikers in the entertaining era, and I think such a laid back character as well. I mean, this guy had the number 9 shirt before Alan signed, and it takes a special character, especially somebody who was a goal scorer himself and had done so well at Queen's Park Rangers before he came to Newcastle. For him to actually give up the number 9 shirt for Alan tells you a lot about him, and I think his character is. Obviously, his football skills have got him apart in my squad, but the fact that we've actually got him in as a substitute, I know some people will be disappointed, but I think people can understand why. Beardsley's my favourite player. I wanted Les as part of it, and I just think either way he could play with Alan, he could play with Peter, and I don't think would go far wrong. So I think he's a welcome addition to my squad. I got so much pleasure out of watching him as a Newcastle fan. Loved the way that he used to jump for the ball. I think aerial threat's a big thing for me. I mean, Rob Lee was good with his head. Alan was good with his head. Les is good with his head. And I think, I've got all angles covered, shots from outside the goal, penalties and, even free kicks. So it's got a bit of everything on and off the bench. Notable mention, I guess, to Andy Cole, who had a fantastic career at Newcastle in those early days and broke Hughie Gallagher's record. I didn't quite feel that he was worthy of my team, especially after what he did when he left the club. It does leave a sour taste in the mouth. I'm singing "Cheer Up, Kevin Keegan." I remember I was there that day and seeing him do it, and that left a bit of sour taste. And I guess the other notable absence, because I was quite harsh on myself and stuck to the 5 subs rule on my dream team, was Gary Speed. Great player, but I always rated Rob Lee over Gary Speed. He was my favourite player. If I could have had a couple of extra, I probably would have had Cole and Speedo in. But from the older days, David McCreary was probably another player who I ummed and ahed about having him in my starting lineup. And as a goalkeeper, probably Kevin Carr was another one who, I had rattling around in my head because he still holds the record for, the clean sheets record at St James's Park, 6 games. So, yeah, I mean, there was lots of people nearly made it. But, I'm pleased with my 1 to 11, pleased with my bench, and certainly pleased with my manager.
Yeah, it is difficult to pick a team, which I found out as well when I did mine. Pleased to see Sir Les is in that team because I was expecting him to be alongside Shiva in the starting 11. Got a bit of a surprise when it was Beardsley, but he definitely deserved to be in that team for sure. Great team. Shame we don't have it now. Love doing it with you, Steve, and I certainly think we could have got a trophy with that side.
Well, thanks for doing it, Holly. I am going to give a mention to the sponsors. Big shout out to Spider VPN for all your internet security. Please Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of the search list. Also, skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Also, thanks to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 0191 389 7245. And to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD, hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegod.com. Thanks to Arcot Interiors as well for all your kitchen needs. They're based on Heaton Road. Google Arcot Interiors and they will give you a good quote. And qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. Bigger shout out as well to Jab Signature, jabsignature.co.uk, who make all of our flyers. First time visitor to the channel, please click Newcastle Legends down below and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up to like the video, click share to share to your other social media, and drop into the comments box to give your comments on my dream team. See whether you liked it or not. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes and on Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. Make sure you pop onto there 24 hours after the show and you will be able to hear the dream team again. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk matchday bucket is still up and running. So please make a virtual donation to them and you can do that 365 days of the year. Holly, been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for doing it with us and I will see you again soon. Take care, Holly.
No problem. Take care. Bye.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's